It's fantastic to have somebody that is very special to me, actually, and speak to Biljana about her knowledge, experience, and perspectives on topic of integration, self-actualization, awareness, even physical health, and so on. But before we start, Biljana, please tell us, who are you?
Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure and honor to be here and have this conversation with you, Jason. In a little bit of conversation that we had previously, I was really elated to have a like-minded person who understands the topic, who understands the depth that we can go. And to have that conversation for me was such an elevated moment. And my intention today is to bring a little bit of that, at least, for audience. So the audience can join us in that elation, in that elevation of consciousness and human being. Like you said, not human person, but the human being in its wholeness. My name is Biljana Karamehmedovic. I'm a holistic transformation coach and the person that actively works on establishing connection in between hearts and minds for people. Inside connection results in the outside connection. So it's maybe could be summarized in a sentence: on a quest for more connected world.
Fantastic. I think so many people have reached out to me and spoken to me about doing business or living from the heart. What does that mean to you? Because that word heart is sort of has multiple meanings. But what is living from the heart to you?
For most of the time, living from the heart would seemingly imply that you live solely from your emotions, because heart is a seat of emotions. And that could look like we need to turn off the mind. My perspective is that they do not work without each other. For the simple reason, yes, the heart is the first organ that is created after the conception, and the organ that actually creates the energetic field, electromagnetic field we live in. It's a seat of the soul, one would say. And yet at the same time, the heart itself cannot navigate your living on this planet Earth, on this dimensional plane, without having a mind to understand what it says, to interpret, to understand, to apply what does heart says. Now, when we take a look at those two organs, even if physically and physiologically only, they have a great tendency to be affected by so much and easily disconnected. So one group of people may say, no, you have to be strictly rational. There is no place for emotion. Another group of people can say, no, you have to go with the heart. You have to live from the heart. The point is, none of them is right and all of them are right, because we have to integrate the two to successfully navigate this plane and to successfully self-actualize and elevate the consciousness at the same time. Without self-actualizations, there is no actualizations of consciousness, right? So if we each one are the point of expression of the consciousness as a whole, how that whole can be elevated if you don't elevate the individual consciousness? Integration in that part, to me, that's what I call leap. And people used to call it leap of faith, leap, quantum leap, or whatever. For me, that leap is actually a reconnection of the heart and mind. And my saying is, if you live really only through the heart, you're gonna burn. You're gonna burn, because heart is so passionate, so hot. On the other side, if you live mind only, you're gonna freeze. You're gonna freeze. Mind can be so paralyzing, so cold, that if you don't connect the two and live from the place of fulcrum point, You may not see what you need to see in order to prosper, to self-actualize, to really be happy in this world, to be poised and in control.
So when you're working with your clients, what's the kind of typical kind of quest that you see them? Is there such a thing as typical quest that you see them going on, you know, from when they start working with you to kind of when they finish?
I would say my typical quest that I take my clients through is what I call I-LEAP formula. That is my own understanding of how the process of manifestation comes. And within that process of manifestation, how we learn to control our emotional states, to control our thinking, to control all the steps of the successful navigation of our desires, our plans, our observations. So it always, for me, it always starts with what is. So the necessity of taking an inventory and having an observation of what is the great indication of not only where we are coming from, but what made us come here where we are. So I'm coming from few places in geographically speaking, right? But where I'm coming from emotionally, trauma-wise, experiences-wise, learning-wise, my own conclusion, accepted conclusion, where I come from that brought me here is as equally important as where you come from. So where you come from, what brought you here needs to be brought to awareness in order to properly kind of get the plan and the steps to go further where you want to be. So understanding that little process for me is one of the things that nobody is teaching it in the school. It's suppressed. And yet, if you go with private education and you seek that knowledge, it's available. It's available to everyone.
So in integral theory, there's this notion of cosmic address, which is that like every human has their cosmic address. So if we take like an assessment of who they are as like Myers-Briggs types, and their like archetype kind of construct, then various kind of assessments, you bring all those together, and what you have is a cosmic address of that person. What does that bring to mind for you when you hear that? And like, how would you, for example, diagnose someone's cosmic address?
I automatically think of that as your personal, authentic, energetic signature. We all have energetic signature that is unique to each individual. And we know that by fingerprint, by iris scan, by completely energetic field that can be read. You oscillate on a certain frequency, period. Everything is frequency. We live in the energetic field that could be measured. In our personal torus field, the energies that are taking place could be measured, and they make you feel certain way when you approach another energetic being. That energy field got read by another person's energetic field. And that's why saying says you only have one chance of making a first impression. People who are very skilled in reading that first impression, they are actually recognizing that's what you call cosmic address. They either resonate or don't resonate with that. They understand, they interpret, or they don't. And what you call the cosmic address for me is that energetic informational field that each of us have. People call it Akashic records sometimes. Everything is remembered for eternity in that energetic field. So integration and integrals, meaning that you are opening yourself to understanding, to reading that field, not only for yourself, but for other people too. More you are able to read it, better you are able to navigate between entities because every entity, not only human beings, but every life expression has energetic signature, has that cosmic address. And everything that brought that being or entity into your energetic field and awareness actually carries that same address through ages. You can move, same like in the physical world, you can move, but you bring your energy with you. You carry your cosmic address with you. You can unravel it, reveal it would be a better word. You can reveal it to the world, or you may be deceived into suppressing it, hiding it, and never actually giving it full expression, which in my mind, giving full expression to who you truly are is the ultimate goal of every individual.
I have to take 3 seconds just to reflect on that, because one of the things that is an interesting theme, I think, is the idea of manifestation. So whenever someone talks about manifestation to someone that might be a scientifically inclined person, or let's say a rational person, sounds immediately like a woo-woo kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then for someone who is a designer like me, and also a scientist, and also open-minded, I just think of manifestation as the process of taking some sort of idea. Sometimes, I've heard actually a very good Bosnian friend of mine who had studied master's degree MBA in the US. And we were like ideating 20 years ago, and he used the specific term, a brain fart. You take a brain fart, which is sort of completely unformulated, unstructured idea, and you refine it and bring it down into a physical form, like an Apple Pencil.
Or you can see it a little different way,
Mm-hmm.
the way I see it.
Okay, so tell me how do you understand manifestation? That was my question.
For over 2 decades, actually it's 25 years since I started interpreting for non-English speakers, for our refugees from Bosnia, Croatia, Serbia, people who did not speak English. I learned it when I came, and I started immediately helping others. And I started understanding that interpreting is actually what we do all day long. Our mind interprets things. Now, when you interpret manifestation as an elevated awareness, then there is no woo at all. If you, for example, let me tell you, I had a conversation yesterday about one of things that could be so fundamental, let's say. And the topic was, there are no men wearing suits in the regular daily life like they used to before. Back in 50s, you could not see a man if he was not working on the farm or construction without wearing suit, and woman without wearing dress and assemblies, right?
Yeah.
Now, compare that to nowadays. Mm-hmm. Everything is floppy. Everything is regular t-shirts, and I'm guilty of that myself. I love t-shirts. And not even an hour after that conversation, because that was in my mind, and I was thinking, really, that's true. People only wear suits when they go to weddings and funerals nowadays, and can't wait to take them off because they don't know how to wear them. They don't feel comfortable in them. And those few that are associated with some group of people that are not very welcome everywhere due to what those suits are doing. For example, take that all into account. An hour later, I am in the store, and the man in his, let's say, late 50s, maybe early 60s, is walking by in complete suit with white tie, black suit, white shirt, black tie, black suit, completely like from different world. And I had to tell him what happened. So did I manifest that gentleman in a suit to be in my visual field? Or did I become aware that there are people who are wearing the suit are comfortable in them, and they are regular people. They are not some high-level politicians or bankers, right? So how would you interpret that? Did I mind it, or did I become aware that there is a person to fit and bring me an evidence of our conversation? So when you interpret manifestation, whatever you are really pulling, like your friends say, pulling from upper level of consciousness down into physical world, I would say you are actually elevating your consciousness a little higher and becoming aware that everything does exist at the same time, just on a different frequency, I would say.
So what is then the process of making a leap? Explain to me exactly what is the leap.
Leap of faith, people used to tell me, is when you really go and do something without any preparation, you just go and jump. To me, it cannot be farther from the truth. Mm-hmm. It's not blind jumping. You do not blind jump anywhere if you want to succeed in landing, right? You can blind jump and not to know where you're going to land. And yet, if you take a little bit of consciousness, a little bit of awareness, and bring that to the process, you first have to realize what happens when some idea forms in your mind and you have a feeling that's exactly what I need to do. And you don't take time to realize that it feels so natural. And you are made so confident that there is no question in your mind that you are going to succeed. What happened there? Exactly what we talked at the beginning. Your heart field and your mind field got synchronized. They started operating at the same frequency. So when you are on that energetic bridge, which professional and scientific terms is psychosomatic coherence, when you are on the synchronized energetic wave that actually connects your brain and heart, or heart and mind, however you want to say it, acting from that place is always in your best interest. And at the same time, not infringing on best interest of other people. That's what we call good for all. When you got action from that fulcrum point and you see 360, you even not aware that you see 360, but heart does. You are in the leap. You are taking the leap. We do not generally operate from the synchronized heart and mind position. It's usually going different level. When we do, that's what I call leap. You can call it leap of faith. To me, it's a leap in consciousness.
And so how do you look at levels of consciousness? Are you able to work out with people what level of consciousness they're at? Are you working with some models there, or what's your take on it?
I don't necessarily take people through the levels of consciousness. I help them get into the leap state of energetic psychosomatic coherence. And that term, getting into energetic psychosomatic coherence, is a scientific term of actually giving people the opportunity to look in and to learn where within them is that place. The steps that I'm taking my clients through and that I'm applying in my life and that I'm teaching whoever wants to listen, especially my students and everything, is strictly based in some scientific methods. One of them is based on HeartMath. HeartMath Institute is one who is actually having the whole technology, having the meters all across the globe. So the heart, they call it heart coherence. It's actually psychosomatic coherence of humanity is completely, constantly measured. And we know how much we are taking the consciousness at a higher level based on those readings, because we know the frequencies of every organ, we know the frequencies of every emotional state. If you look at the work of Dr. David Hawkins, his book Power versus Force, he has the consciousness levels separated in the table from the lowest one, which is guilt and shame, to the highest one of enlightenment. So based on the frequencies, you can understand that our emotions are actually showing us what level of consciousness we are at. When we realize what emotions we are experiencing at the moment, at that moment, we are at that level of consciousness. So our goal is to go to the next one. To go slowly, it takes time. You can choose to go as high as you can in one jump or one leap. And that is where you apply the one part that I'm doing with most of my clients is the nonviolent communications from Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. That foundation from nonviolent communications and HeartMath combined together is within Rasur International, which is my most favorite organization when it comes to connecting the world. Now, when you are aware of those two things coming together, then you don't have to go step by step in building a higher level of awareness. You may skip it because you understand what's going on. You understand where you are, you understand where you want to be. And that's why it said, once you are at an angry level of consciousness, then you already overcame the lowest one that are actually capable of killing. So for me, when somebody is so low, I think there is no higher goal than teaching them how to dissolve it completely, and not to take stairs, but really to take the plane or rocket.
Yeah, you know, the thing about like the leap that you mentioned, I think it was Alan Watts, one of the Alan Watts lectures, where he talks about how people sometimes when they get high on psychedelics or whatever, and they suddenly like develop this idea that they can fly, and then they go to the top of the building and they just jump, right, thinking that they can fly. He says, like, why didn't you just take off from the ground like a bird does? You know, the bird doesn't jump,
Yes,
like climb on the
yes.
roof, you know, it's just like to fly from the ground, but they all go on the top of the building and then jump. So yeah, there's the leap is actually upwards, not downwards.
Exactly.
So here's one thing that is always a practice for me these days. Whenever I'm speaking to a female, okay, I look to integrate as much of the female wisdom, if there is such a thing, through the conversation and onwards in my life. So how do you, as a female wise person, okay, sage, let's say,
Thank you.
how do you approach the kind of hard-headed males with regards to connecting with their hearts?
Hard-headed males, I had them around me all my life. And guess what I noticed? Guess what I noticed? That I had a hard time being hard-headed in the true presence of loving feminine. True presence, not threatening presence, not threatening. And as a Bosnian man, I am married to one for 33 years. And he taught me so much about what feminine is capable of doing to hard-headed man. He was always open about it, and he always told me what's going on. So I was able to learn versus take all my knowledge and base it on hard-headed men that I knew earlier. So masculinity, the true masculinity, the authentic one, not threatening, protecting one, because that's the first, I think, order of the universe, to put the protection on the male and put the nurturing on the female. So that protection is withdrawn when that female is no longer nurturing, but becomes the predator, which many females are capable of because they don't understand their masculine parts, or they amplify them for no reason, or whatever, doesn't matter. But if we understand the protection part that males need to fulfill, to fill the male, to feel manly, we as feminine, authentic, divine feminine, really can talk openly with divine masculine and work together. Why do we work together? For future generation, for the family, for the unit that actually prolongs the species. And that's how nature actually incorporated it. If you want to take the example that we were bombarded with men going out and hunting and protecting the house, and male being in the house, ordering the house, managing it, and nurturing the children, those two roles are made to mean so little or nothing last several decades. Why? Because when you keep that unit, nothing can stop the race from living forever. Not individual physical body, but the life itself. If you want to negate the life, take away the masculinity and the warrior, take away the femininity and nurturing, what happens? Who pays the price? Either kids who are already present or those who are not going to ever come, right? So to me, when you are talking about what feminine can do, feminine can learn to present itself in non-threatening way and to work with its own masculine parts to really understand and support the true masculine in expressing themselves as what they truly are, protectors of the feminine, protectors of the race, protectors of the future generations, because masculine is a seed. What's going to happen when there is no seed? Not all feminine in the world will be able to continue the race, right? And please don't misunderstand me speaking of race. I'm speaking about human life and life in general, because on this plane, life needs masculine and feminine to create new life in everything, right? So what's going on in the world, what I see, all that word that is artificially brought between men and between male, masculine and feminine, it's artificially brought, and we need to learn to see through deception if we are going to continue as humanity. To me, that's where the threat is.
So this is also a very, very interesting topic in itself, that first of all, it seems as though humans are species that are able to affect their own evolution in a conscious way. That's first thing. You might disagree with this, but that's what we get told anyway.
I don't.
Okay. And then so our future seems to be somewhat impacted by our own doing, as opposed to it's just brought on by nature. That's also what we get told. comment on that, give me your perspective on it. What do you think about that? Because it seems like we're always at some sort of like fork in the road where we can either go down a transhumanist route, whatever, or even what's seen as like backwards, into sort of primitive tribal way of living, or continue as we are, which is presented as unsustainable, blah, blah, blah. So what's your take on all of that?
My take on all of that together is, if you take that there is a division between so-called evolutionist and so-called creationist, and trying to kind of put people in one or the other, to me, they are both true. We are created. There is no question in my mind about it, because we are too sophisticated not to be designed. On the other hand, like you said, we are affecting our own evolution through our consciousness and through the faculty of ability to make decisions, how to affect that consciousness. We are creators ourselves, and that's why we affect our evolution. That's why we have a choice which fork to take, like which side of the fork to take. To me, the middle is always the straight way. No left, no right, because you have to get both to see both sides, to have a full view, right? And then proceed straight where your leap is taking you. For the simple reason, if you give more importance to your mind, it's not going to work well, because mind does not have a view of the torus field. If you only take the torus field, you're going to miss on the rationality. You're going to miss on all the components that brain can tell you, right? Because brain operates with everything that was and is. So to me, taking the evolutionary or creationist view is not complete. Neither one is complete without each other. So now, what is the view? It's a holistic view. We are modified. There are proofs for that. There are readings for that. It's obvious, and we are continuously being modified. Now, how? By allowing what we are allowing, by actually not caring for what's going on at the levels where we don't even want to go, because it's a higher mod, right? Why we were made to consider that higher mod? Because we are made as beings to always go with the least resistance, right? It's not mine to care about. Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is. What happened is, believing that we don't have a power to affect our lives, outsourcing it to whatever else, either to other person or to other entity or to other cosmic beings, doesn't matter, nature. Outsourcing it takes your power away. And then you do not affect your evolution. You simply let nature do its course. It's not always nature doing its course. It's other people doing their course, right? And without regard for, let's say, your life, your lifestyle, your being, and your dreams. To me, holistic view is the only way to go. And that means realizing the hard truth, removing deceptions, realizing what is, where we are, and then really defining where we want to go based on one simple universal or natural or God principle. You can do whatever you want as long as you do not infringe other person's right to do what they want. Be it in religious views, spiritual views, I don't know, whatever you want. So are we capable of that? Are we going to develop ourselves ever to be able to take the freedom for ourselves to really define what we want to do and doing that, and not to try to enforce it on another person? That would be something.
So, will we ever have peace on earth? And if so, when?
That's a great question with very simple answer. When we find the peace within ourselves, each and every person, or at least critical mass. Critical mass. When I recently, in the view of all the racial tensions and happenings in United States, reached out to one of my very dear friends to see how she's doing. She was extremely, extremely down, and I got her permission to teach her this process. And on a feedback later, when I asked her, if you want to share what was the insight on the end, what did you get from this? She said, I finally got some peace. And to me, that was the compliment that I really cherish to the bottom of my heart, because ability to find the peace when everything around you is crushing is a skill worth learning. And I draw also on my moment of finding the peace within bombings in Sarajevo. And you are from war country, you know what I'm talking about. Ability to get into the peace with whatever is going around is one of the highest forms of consciousness. Access it, radiate it around you, and then ultimately pull over other people within that energetic field to share it with them. So when you go into the peace, what can happen is that it becomes contagious. It becomes contagious because other energetic entities read it and they join. So when we were working on it, she entered the piece and she said, I want to really get fast at this. I can say that I'm able to get very fast into the realm of peace within myself, whatever is happening, not to react. That is the basically ability to control your stress, to control your hormonal soup in the body, and to control your emotions, your thinking, your responses, everything.
You know what? I have to make this little kind of statement. I recently actually had to hit the bottle, and it's a bottle of vitamin water with a touch of elderflower juice.
Love the elderflower.
Yeah, so that's at peace. So yes, and I think for me it was really profound to hear your. I don't really like so much to talk about people's stories because it's kind of a narrative, but I think this kind of idea that you've learned effectively learned how to meditate right in the middle of bombing in Sarajevo, in the basements with a small baby and all those pressures, isolation, and that becomes the real skill to be able to be at peace in the middle of war. That is what is the ultimate skill, right?
The ultimate skill to me is absolutely not only in the war, but in your inner war. You don't have to have bombs getting around in order to have a war within you, right? How many people you know in regular life that are unhappy, that are so troubled with their situation, their circumstances, that they are worried so much that they literally have the war within themselves, raging with anger, with disappointment, with guilt, depression, shame, everything all at once. And I can easily recognize it because I was there. I was there. And what we are told to do in those circumstances, get medicated, get medicated, get zombified, instead of really getting on the quest deep down inside, digging for gold and understanding ourselves, understanding why is it, why we are there, what's coming from that, what is that allowing us to learn about ourselves. How long it took me to be told that I have a power to choose what I want in my life, right? You got kids, and first thing you learn, don't do that, don't do that, don't touch that, don't touch that. Everything is no, right? And it takes you to come to maybe teenager years, maybe even later, maybe even premenopausal or menopausal years, or I don't know what life crisis, right? To understand you had that power all along, right? That's what to me is worth exploring. Absolutely, the goal in life should be for every person to know themselves.
Fantastic conversation, Biljana. Really, thank you so much. Where can people
Love
find
it.
more about you, and who are you looking for? You know, manifest that. You know, because I'd love for people to reach out to you and you know, ask you to work with them. But tell us, you know, what kind of people
Thank
you're
you.
looking for, and where can they find you?
Thank you. As you mentioned, I'm going to mention my internet address. I can be found and look at biljana.us. That would be biljana.us. That's my website. Unfinished, always in progress, always in working.
Yes.
And yet I do have my story there. And the people I'm looking for to connect with are always high achievers. I work with high achievers, helping them to decode what's going on, why they are not doing what they really know they should, would, want. So we explore how to really take the leap and claim the victories in life.
Thank you so much, Biljana. I really appreciate you, and we'll talk more going forward, because there's so many different avenues to explore.
My pleasure. Always pleasure to talk with you, Jason. I am looking forward to our next one. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.